because there's so many legacy systems already in play and because the margins are so razor thin, you'll find that a lot of the retailers are looking to integrate new technology versus scrapping what they currently have and then implementing something new.
So grocers are getting squeezed from every direction right now. Store ops, security, technology decisions, whole supply chain from DC to store customer, um, challenges, ROI, scalability, all the things we want to talk about today. So I'm here with Corrie Martin. Corrie Martin is Telaid sales leader and kind of our grocery SME. And we want to dig into what you're actually seeing on the ground from the operators, from store managers, from IT, loss prevention that you're hearing, that you're speaking to. I think it's important to note, Corey, you come from a long line of career in the grocery space from kind of the early days working with one of the largest national grocers here, as well as on the vendor partner side, both on software and now the hardware technology side here at Telaid. So excited to dig in, excited to hear your insights.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's just start with the core technology. Lots of legacy systems out there, from your cameras to your POS to just, you name it. What are some of those key challenges that grocers are seeing, and what should they be thinking about?
Sure. So, I mean, as grocers are under massive pressure to start modernizing their technology, to ensure that they're optimizing, razor thin margins and, really working against some really tough, complex supply chain environments, high store counts, perishable inventory. Those are a lot of the biggest challenges that these grocers see. And they tend to, obviously have a lot of legacy systems in play, whether it's, POS, ERP, just loyalty platforms, et cetera. And when they were built initially, a lot of the systems weren't designed to work together necessarily, which yields manual workarounds, inconsistent data across the business. And so I think because there's so many legacy systems already in play and because the margins are so razor thin, you'll find that a lot of the retailers are looking to integrate new technology versus scrapping what they currently have and then implementing something new. So I think integration and just having like a seamless platform that is an overarching system for everything, especially from like a inventory management perspective, and then certainly a task management perspective. You're starting to see all of that come under one umbrella.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's start. What's some low hanging fruit in the store? We want to modernize. What hardware should I look at first, or what process should I take to understand what I have and kind of drive towards that standardization?
Yeah, so I think it's just the basics of looking at what the legacy systems deliver today. What are those incremental capabilities that you're striving for in regards of, I think most of the grocers are focused on EBITDA, improving cash contribution. Those are the things that make them a viable business, and then certainly that customer experience. So with all of those metrics in mind, I think that's kind of what they're using as the benchmark. And then obviously having to be very agile, especially with the explosion of AI, but having to be very agile and thoughtful for how they're approaching that type of strategy. What does that mean for their business? Especially for some of those grocers who might be, newer to the digital era, right? They're still, working on things like inventory accuracy, or again, just like simple things like streamlining all of the technology. So I think it's, just going back to the basics of what is the customer pain point, what are the issues or challenges that you're trying to solve from an associate perspective, and then obviously, how does that play back from a financial perspective?
Yeah, no, all good points. So let's key in on, because it's the hot word of 2025, 2026, and probably now going into 2027,
Mhm.
AI. AI
Yes.
has a lot of different meanings. You can talk about, generative AI, a lot of the chat GPTs, Claude, Copilots, and many more out there.
Mhm.
Agentic AI really driving in and automating those processes and serving almost as a an associate for you and looking across your systems. Vision AI, using the cameras in the store to solve some of those challenges that you were
Mhm.
talking about: inventory accuracy, customer experience and queue management, labor efficiency. How many should
Mhm.
I have, when and where, based on, customer traffic, peaks and lows, the self checkout or the holistic checkout experience.
Mhm.
And it's continuing to drive opportunity for ROI. Let's dig in at the store level, using the Vision AI perspective. What are you seeing grocers really focusing on? Which applications are driving ROI and
Mhm.
seeing that kind of full store, full fleet rollout?
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting because, obviously this AI trend is newer, I think. I think it's really exploded within the past year or two, specifically in grocery. So I would say a lot of retailers and grocers have obviously spent a lot of time wrapping their minds about around what does AI mean, but also what does it mean for their business specifically and what is ready. Again, going back to the original point, they're not wanting to necessarily adopt new technologies. They're wanting to leverage what's existing. So I think they're starting at the core of what's existing infrastructure and are there additional capabilities being offered through those solutions or vendors that are AI um, enabled. And so I think they're starting at that point, as well as using AI to help clean up data and help with the cloud infrastructure and standardizing processes. So I think they're, from what I've seen in the grocers that I've worked with, they're taking a very like modest approach initially, and then again focused on efficiencies and streamlining. You see a lot of predictive and demand forecasting, but I would still say, just in the experience I've had with the grocers that I work with, that I don't know that they're necessarily ready mentally or just from a business acumen perspective to do like agentic AI necessarily, because I think there's a lot of hesitation around what that means. But yeah, I think we are slowly and gradually moving into AI, but I see it more from like a data perspective currently.
Yeah, no, I think that's helpful. And as you know, and hopefully those who are listening know, Telaid has an emerging technology solutions group where we very much focus on consulting with our end clients, with the grocer, with the retailer, with the C store, with the distribution center, just depending on who the end client is. And with grocers, but really across the board, one of the things we're seeing is, what's the right approach to take? So there's a lot of what we call single point vision AI solutions. You're solving one issue, one problem, which can be great.
Mm.
The checkout experience and trying to remove loss there, whether it's accidental loss. It's an organic banana and I can't find it, and I just typed it in as banana. I forgot to scan something because I've got 3 kids with me and they're, being children and running around, and I just missed something. Or intentional theft, that does happen too. That is a great solution. A lot of grocers have it, and but it is very single pointed.
Yes.
Or you might just say, hey, I want to do scanning on my inventory. And there's, solutions that can help you with inventory accuracy by scanning your shelves and certain areas. How would you recommend grocers thinking about going at it? Either single point, I solved this one problem with this, I solved this one problem with this other partner, versus we like to consult on this, a more platform approach to AI? And maybe just really quickly, some pros and cons that you've seen in the grocery environment.
I would say that grocers lean towards the platform approach, right? Because just even from a capital perspective or OpEx perspective, that's always going to be the best bet, right? Because I think even with things like, the dome cameras in stores were just purpose for catching theft, right? But now there's capabilities like dwell time, customer direction, customer movement, all these other sorts of things. So I think like partnering with the vendor themselves on helping them build out that roadmap, right? And then Yes, and then that's how you unlock those additional capabilities. But yeah, just like any AI iteration or just any technology iteration, you have that one singular entry point, that capability, but you always have those additional capabilities and benefits in the back of your mind and when you're selecting a vendor partner.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I love that distinction. I think one other thing to think in mind as you look at this is sometimes a single point, it's about speed. I can get in, I can solve that one problem, I can
Mhm.
prove my ROI, and I just need that today and now.
Yes.
Where it does take a little bit more planning, more forethought, road mapping. So you're going to do
Mhm.
a lot more upfront effort for that long term approach and scalability. So sometimes it's need based. Do you need to solve this right now and we need to go? Or are you okay with and you have the time and the flexibility a little bit to truly map this out? So it's just
Yeah.
something else I think in mind.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And then, as an example, maybe it's an operations group that's approaching you because they want help with, reducing labor for manual pick walks, as an example. But now you have a solution that can help you solve for that and automate those pick walks, right? But now you're realizing that that also offers a merchandising benefit. So then you're leveraging your merchandising partners, and then it kind of just grows from there, and you can start building that use case.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I want to segue a little bit to, grocery in the past, you had IT, ops, loss prevention, marketing, distribution center, store, the whole supply chain, lots of different accountability owners across the organization that have similar needs for technology and for the use of technology. What's some advice or thoughts you'd give to a grocer on how they manage all those different priorities and different teams and break down the silos?
Yeah, that is really challenging and interesting, and not to just, leave it to how the organization structures their internal teams, but that does have an impact. Sometimes you'll see operations also owning, um, merchandising sometimes falls under it. It just depends on the organization. So I think that differs. I think if they have a strong, because I came from a Fortune 1 company, we had a really strong PMO, suite of people that really helped, you know, keep everyone on track. We all understood what the go-dos were. We all understood what the mission was, the metrics that we were going after, et cetera. So I think having like a centralized group kind of owning that, that's not necessarily biased, but represents the business and that leadership and helps prioritize and drive everybody towards those collective goals. I think that's always really helpful. Not to dumb it down, but it really does come to those leaderships and the connectors and how well they collaborate. And then again, just helping them understand, what's in it for them. Why should they get involved? Why should they care?
Yeah. I think one other thought, I think those are all great points, is if you are a leader in any of these areas, maybe I lead operations or I lead loss prevention or I lead IT, have conversations with your peers.
Yep.
I have stepped into client meetings and found, helped them find out that, oh, ops was doing this and marketing was doing this, and there's budget to get it all done if they just work together.
Yep.
It's hard at any level, from Fortune 1 to, your local regional players. It happens, but it's just kind of a friendly reminder is go have those conversations, see where their goals are, what they're trying to solve. More times than not, you can probably solve them together. Two
Yep.
birds, one stone mentality.
Yep. Better to be proactive about it and have those tough conversations up front so that you guys can align and just understand what each other's, goals and pain points are. I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
So I wanted to kind of talk about a couple other technologies outside of AI that we're seeing really pick up speed in the grocery space.
Mhm.
Retail media networks, the digital signage. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing, the what, the why, the how.
Yes, so that has been trending for the past, I don't know, 5 plus years, right? And as customers are being inundated with advertisements and, products are always moving inside of the stores and they're trying to take advantage of a buy one, get one. I think it's how all of those pieces come together, right? So how does the customer shopping list, um, are there specific ads that are geared towards them based off of their shopping history. When they walk into a store, they walk past a certain, um, section, does a coupon pop up and prompt them to go shop that area? So I think that's what we're starting to see. I know, as an example, there's electronic shelf labels that you start to see in stores that are doing, flashing advertisements, specifically like in makeup as an example. So yeah, you're starting to see, and I know most all of the retailers, they probably all have P&L lines specifically tied to that retail media. And I know, there's a few fortune companies that have, signed up for big commitments in that space.
Yeah, I think you hit on a different point or a great point. You kind of threaded it throughout your whole conversation is, a technology like electronic shelf labels does solve perhaps a labor challenge in terms of not having to go manually update these. You just have it in your system and it happens. But now you're having a dual use case or even a triple use case. You can
Mhm.
do ads, you can customize and personalize and tailor the experience. So looking at these things to solve just not one area of your business, but across multiple, it's a pretty big distinction that is available today.
Exactly, and I think, it's important for both the retailer and the vendor, right? Because the vendor doesn't wanna have just one point of entry or one product that works well, right? They want a whole product suite, and they wanna keep growing. So I think it's beneficial for both.
Yeah. So another technology I want to talk about, and I was at a grocery event last year where there was a great speaker came in and talked about the use of RFID in grocery, and
Mhm.
really the two use cases were kind of your meat department
Okay.
as well as the bakery. And
Okay.
with just the ease of being able now to print RFID and RFID labels, really helping manage you know, are these baking goods need to be thrown away, or could I go put them on sale because they need to be thrown away soon? And rather than lose them, we just drastically mark it down and kind
Mm.
of automate that experience. RFID has normally been in specialty retail or even distribution centers. What are your thoughts to a grocer that wants to kind of delve into this, but it's different. It's a different way of thinking. How do they work through that? What should they do?
It is, and, I think I won't be this is an original thought, like, RFID has been cyclical for decades, right? Like, you hear retailers all the time, "We're going to do it, they don't do it. We're going to do it, they don't do it." And then there's, certain retailers who have done some testing with, like you said, meat, apparel's really popular. I think the biggest thing that I hear, the biggest challenge against RFID is just the cost and the scalability, right? And I think that benefits like, more accurate inventory counts or, like a faster stock audit, better shelf availability or freshness.
Yeah,
I think those
safety. Yeah,
are yeah, I think, like, those benefits make sense, but I think, again, they're really having trouble with that scalability and the ROI. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see if they do go full scale with RFID, which I don't think they ever will. I think it will be very specific departments always. Um, and then or how else are they able to achieve things like, faster recalls or food safety compliance, cold chain monitoring, those 2 things alone offer a lot of complexity when you're trying to do tracing and tracking. So, yeah, I think we're starting to see that mature a lot faster than it ever has, though.
yeah. No, I
Mhm.
that's a great point. And I want to talk about the cold chain perspective
Yeah,
now a little
yep,
bit. Grocers, coolers, freezers, behind the scenes that customers don't even see. More freezers, more coolers.
yep.
Talk a little bit about the challenges today of managing those temperatures, managing for food safety, for the customer, for spoilage, and what you're seeing out there that could maybe help solve that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, managing freezers, coolers, just the HVAC in general in a physical store is very challenging, and it can be very laborious. We obviously have experience from the tech perspective of being sent out and remedying some of those things, but you're starting to see retailers and grocers leverage things like IoT
Yep.
so that right? And we have experience with that. We have partners that can help do that. But they're starting to leverage sensors that are continually collecting data and alerting them to any anomalies that might need to be checked on. So you're starting to see a lot of IoT in that space, so that they can be more hands off. I know that they're also focused on, predictive maintenance, which is something that we have helped with as well, right? To, you know, just, you know, reduce the cost of maintenance and support in the long run. And I know that they're also working on energy optimization. So there's many, 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 many different technologies out there to help retailers reduce the amount of energy level, um, and also help with monitoring and tracking. And that's just in the physical store, right? So I know the other side of it is delivery. So everyone's hot into delivering groceries, but how do you do that in a compliant and food fresh, safe way? So that's a whole other ballgame.
And I think, similar to what you said to RFID, it's not necessarily new.
Mhm.
Sensors, temperature monitoring has been out there and tested in various environments for a while. And I think one of the great times or thought tracks around it is now RFID is scalable because costs have driven down so dramatically from even a year or two
Mhm.
ago. Same thing with sensors. A sensor, you know, the labor versus installing the sensor and managing that way, it used to be maybe apples to apples, or even labor was less. Well, as times have
Mhm.
changed, technology continuously improves, that ROI model is now there. You can
Yeah.
roll out RFID in distinct areas that make sense. You can roll out tags, and you can see the ROI versus the labor. It happens, and I think that's one of the things we can help with as well. But I think it's a point of, if you looked at it a year ago or 2 years ago, look at it again.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, last question, kind of before we wrap up. Lots of technology in the store. We covered a bunch of them, right? Your cameras, your POS, your access points, your wireless networks, servers in the manager's room. I'm the IT leader over grocery. How do I keep a good grasp on everything that I have in my
Mhm.
stores, and how do I do it across, the whole brand, state by state, location by location? Is there anything out there that will give me a good snapshot of what I have and then help me manage it? Is there a camera down? Is there an access point down? And,
Yes.
and what does that look like? Is there something that maybe Telly could help us with to
Mhm.
support that side?
Yeah, definitely. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we have a knock to where we can help do some of that. And I know that retailers are building their own knocks if they don't already have them, to where they can do some of that remote monitoring nationwide, right? And so obviously IT, if they have things like sensors, right, they're getting daily reports, et cetera, through dashboards that are helping them track and keep a handle on some of these things. And then again, just from a project, oversight perspective, just having a really strong PMO or team that has a good grasp and is, driving the mission collectively. Yeah.
Yep, you're right. We do have a great product, Device Watch. But I
Mhm.
think the key points are is having a centralized platform where you
Yes.
can look at everything. You can
Yep.
see, if you're working through a remodel cycle, or you're working through a technology upgrade refresh cycle, you can see what you have in the various stores, what's been upgraded, what hasn't,
Mhm.
what's working, what's not. Maybe you did install a certain switch and it's breaking all the time.
Yeah.
Get being able to have that data at your fingertips to plan where you want to go, roadmap it all next. But it also can help you with proactive maintenance, or just get a really strong break fix program in place with your chosen technology deployment partner, and that gives you peace of mind, gives you data and understanding. You could even manage like warranty and RMAs and that whole process, as long as
Mhm.
you have that centralized view. So
Yeah.
between that and a strong PMO, I think those are some great talking points.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
As we end, just any last thoughts for our grocers out there who are looking to innovate, who are looking to upgrade, refresh, make some changes, just from your perspective and what you've seen.
some of the biggest challenges again that I've heard is just how are we increasing EBITDA and cash contribution? And then again, what does that mean for the customer and how are we making their lives more convenient and ensuring that the right products are in the right place at the right time, and that they are able to make that sale, right? So I think anything that can unlock those core things would be helpful. And just, having a really like methodical approach to it with the help of a solutions team like what we have, from a consultative perspective, can help decipher what actually works and what doesn't. What does it mean? What's the broader roadmap, the capabilities? How is it working with other clients? Things like that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Well, Corey, thank you for your time and sharing some insights, and look forward to talking more about where we see the future of grocery.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Bye.